Find me a way to justify the conclusion I have already come to.
Sound familiar?
So there's been an interesting development in the Jussie Smollett case, and one that has broader implications in the practice of law and as relates to human nature. An internal email within the prosecution's office has been leaked and is circulating in the news. It's not clear who it was written to and who wrote it, but it reads as follows. We are looking for examples of cases, felony preferable, where we, in exercising our discretion, have entered into verbal agreements with defense attorneys to dismiss charges against an offender if certain conditions were met, such as the payment of restitution, completion of community service, completion of class, etc., but the defendant was not placed in a formal diversion program. Please ask your ASAs if they have examples of these types of dispositions, and we will work with them further to figure out on what case it was done. Nobody is in trouble. We are just looking for further examples of how we, as prosecutors, use our discretion in a way that restores the victim but causes minimal harm to the defendant in the long term.
Translation?
The prosecuting attorneys had already decided that Smollett was going to go free, and they just needed to find a legal basis to justify the conclusion to which they had already come. Some people are going to look at this and call it corruption, and you cannot blame them. Others are going to look at this and call it preferential treatment, and you cannot blame them. Others are going to look at it and call it unfair and unequal application of the laws, and you cannot disagree with them. This illustrates the fundamental problem with the power of discretion. And this is not a phenomenon that is unique to any one group, any one profession, any walk of life. It is a universal condition that people have in arguing from conclusions as opposed to towards conclusions. People will come to the conclusion they want to come to and then look for justification to justify to themselves and to others why they have come to that conclusion, and that is exactly what appears to have happened in the Jussie Smollett case. And the reality, as it relates to the practice of law, it's not much different than what judges do oftentimes, and beyond the scope of law, this is not much different than what people do in life. They come to the conclusions that they want to come to, and then they go looking for the supporting evidence to justify that conclusion to themselves and to others. And when I talk about this phenomenon in law, it's not to criticize the judges. Very rarely in a file is it going to be black or white, totally right or totally wrong. The truth lies somewhere in between. And at some point in a file, a judge is going to come to his or her conclusion. At some point in a file, no further evidence is going to change the judge's mind. The judges come to their conclusion based on a global assessment of the file, and they're going to look through the file to find the evidence to justify their conclusion when they put it to paper in a judgment. The prosecuting attorneys, for whatever the reason, determined Jussie was going to go to the extent that they could find any form of a legal basis for it to be justified. Why? Maybe they liked him, maybe he had connections, maybe he had money, wealth, power, maybe they were starstruck. It doesn't matter. To the extent that they can justify their decision in law, despite the fact that it looks like unequal application of the law, despite the fact that it looks like preferential treatment, they believe they found the legal basis to justify the conclusion to which they came. Now, applying this to law, one of the most important things for any lawyer is to be liked by the judge. And not liked in a corrupt sense. Liked as in appreciated, respected. A judge can like a lawyer for a number of reasons. They can like him for their honesty, for their sense of humor, for their straightforwardness. A judge can like an attorney for being hard yet respectful at the same time. It is important for a lawyer's client to be liked and respected by the judge. Oftentimes a judge will come down on one side or the other because they don't like the client. And if a judge doesn't like a client, to the extent that they can justify the decision to which they've already come, they will. There's nothing wrong with being liked, and there are various ways in which someone can be liked. There are multiple ways to like somebody. What the hell am I talking about? Whatever, you get what I mean. Arguing from conclusions as opposed to towards them is not the best way to proceed, but it's the way that people proceed oftentimes in life. And it's clearly what happened in Jussie Smollett's case, as can be evidenced by this internal email. Find me something that can justify the decision that I've already made, and to the extent I can find something, I'm going to come to that decision, and this is going to be my justification for it. And lawyers have to appreciate that judges are going to do this, and it's not a fault, it's just the way justice works. Justice is human. And people can step back and see how they adopt this same frame of mind in life, in politics, in discussion. This is what I believe in. When I scour through all the evidence, I'm going to pick the things that allow me to believe this. I'm not sure this video is any good. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and peace out. I'm done.